Africa. We have a lot of positive stories to tell and share with the world, and I'm determined to use my platform to make that a reality. This is why I've teamed up with the Fata Network to bring you a brand new show, Stories from the Continent, every Saturday at 4 p.m. Do make sure you join us. There will be lots of fun, informative, and impactful conversation. Hi everyone, my name is Haddy and I'm a journalist and communications specialist. I believe that as Africans, we should be in charge of every narrative coming out of Africa. We have a lot of positive stories to tell and share with the world, and I'm determined to use my platform to make that a reality. This is why I've teamed up with the Fata Network to bring you a brand new show, Stories from the Continent, every Saturday at 4 p.m. Do make sure you join us. There will be lots of fun, informative, and impactful conversation. Do make sure you join us. There will be lots. Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Stories from the Continent. My name is Haddy. On today's show, we discuss entrepreneurship in Africa and why it is key to the continent's development. Africa is undergoing a huge transformation, and one of the driving forces behind it are entrepreneurs and innovators. As a whole, the continent has the highest rate of entrepreneurs in the world, but their contribution to economic growth is limited. To find out why, I'm joined by one of the continent's homegrown entrepreneurs, Mr. Saul Frazer. He is the CEO and Director of Global Properties. Mr. Frazer, welcome.
Thank you, Haddy. Thank you for having me.
Join us. So let's start with your story. You were only 30 when you started Global Properties, which has become a household name now. You lived in Sweden, you studied here in the UK, and it was when you moved back to the Gambia that really kicked off your career. You know, take us back to those first steps. What did it take as a young man moving back home to make it in the Gambia?
Well, I'll never get tired of telling this story, Haddy, because it has literally changed my life. As you know, I was born and raised in the Gambia by Gambian parents. Obviously, a lot of people think that I'm foreign because of my surname, but I'm Gambian, typical Gambian. And when I was around 14, around about 12, my mother decided that we'll move to Sweden. We moved to Sweden. I was there doing my high school education. But you know, if anybody who's living in Sweden today will realize that there's a lot of restriction in terms of developing when you're black. And I realized this very, very early. And I decided that I didn't want to stay in that country. As much as it gave me a good foundation, I felt like moving to England would have been a better, option for me. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, I wanted to develop my English language. Mm-hmm. But I also wanted the exposure of having an international education. Mm-hmm. Then I moved to England. In England, it was exciting for me, all of a sudden I found a gathering of Gambian youths doing amazing things. I was excited to be in a mix of Gambians going to Gambian clubs, going to the park, playing football and all that. These were things that I was lacking in Sweden. But then, fast forward some years later, I finished my education and then decided that, hey, it was time for me to go back home and help develop my country, because that's all I know. Being a Gambian, African, it was difficult to recognize myself in Europe in terms of what I wanted to achieve. I really wanted to come back home and inspire people and help develop my country. That was the reason why I came back up, really. Yeah.
And when you made that decision to move back, did you think your business that you have now, Global Properties, did you think it would have the success that it does now?
When I moved back home,
Mm-hmm.
the idea was to just look for employment
Mm-hmm.
because I was in the country for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that I needed to be in an area where I could quickly learn, what is happening in the country,
Mm-hmm.
who is who, what business is working, what business isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing to do then was to work at the bank, because I believe that when you're at the bank,
Mm-hmm.
you get to meet clients, you get to know what industry is doing well and what industry wasn't doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it happened. After joining the bank, I realized an opportunity just 6 months into working.
Mm-hmm.
That was to join to set up a real estate company.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the fast track version.
Yeah.
What really led me into setting up a real estate company was I was out there trying to solve my own problem.
Mm-hmm.
As many stories back then, when I was living in the UK, I was working part-time, raising money,
Mm-hmm.
trying to send back home so that I can build a piece of property for me. The little that I know was I sent the money back home and it was squandered. And like they said, the best businesses are the businesses that solve problems. So I went out there thinking, how do I make sure that people in the diaspora doesn't have to go through the same issue that I went through, doesn't have to go through the same pain that I went through? And that led me to say, hey, you know what? Maybe setting up a real estate company where people can join or people can invest through me rather than having to rely on relatives. And that's basically how it started, with a combination of different other factors as well. Yeah.
A little bit, because you're narrating a scenario that unfortunately is too familiar for a lot of people. You send money back home to family and friends to invest in a piece of land, thousands of pounds, and it's only when you step foot in the country you realize you were scammed. What was that experience like for you?
And Haddy, the story. I was waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
working at a sandwich shop from like 6 till maybe 8, and then from 8 I'll go to university.
Mm-hmm.
From university I'll probably finish around 1 and then join another job that I was doing, another part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So I was spending a lot of time working to save up this money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, imagine after raising, the little that I could have raised,
Mm-hmm.
with the hope of owning something to come back home to,
Mm-hmm.
and just send it to a relative, not to anybody, but to a relative, and came home with the shock that the money was squandered.
Mm-hmm.
I was totally devastated.
Mm-hmm.
I was disappointed. But what could I have done? I could not take my relative to the police.
Mm-hmm.
Nor could I have taken them to court.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things are dealt with in the family, which means that nothing comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was fundamentally wrong. That was totally wrong. People
Absolutely.
shouldn't have to go through that, knowing the hardship that I went through, knowing the difficulties of obtaining money the right way.
Mm-hmm.
It was just devastating for me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like they said, great businesses solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to solve that problem for myself and for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah.
so where then does this love of business and building, where does it come from?
It started very early. Global Properties wasn't my first business. I think the love of being a Gambian and wanted to see my country develop and do something different from what everybody was doing started even when I just arrived in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I remember coming to England knowing very little people, very few people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my first initiatives was to create a website called UK Gambians. The idea was that anything Gambian, all good Gambians would be listed there. Again, I was there and I didn't know what was happening. And I said to myself, how can I make sure that people within the community can communicate and know exactly what is happening? The website was the solution, so that if anybody is having a naming ceremony, it would be listed there. If anybody had a successful story to share, it would be listed there.
That is fantastic.
Events.
Yeah.
Exactly, events and everything. So that was how UK Gambia came about, because for me, it solved a problem. Then all of a sudden, I know what is happening within our community and everybody else around us. So that venture was very successful. I got partners like Trust Bank then and some other institutions like JFIN. And it took off from there. But obviously we know what happened, and then came the Facebook and all the others, and then just took over.
Yes.
So the entrepreneurial, and that wasn't the first. Even thinking about it now, my mother inspired me, because as a young Gambian, I was helping her selling fish cakes. You know, she would fry them, and I would carry them on my head, going around selling ice blocks.
This is in Gambia. This is in Gambia.
Yeah, in Gambia before we moved to Sweden. So I tried a lot of things, you know, and the saying is that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, but the most successful ones are the ones that never give up. You know, so I never gave up on the dream of setting up something for me and help develop my country and also inspire other people.
Fantastic. So, and as I've said, Global Properties is now, you know, one of the most successful companies that we have in the Gambia, especially in terms of real estate. You're also active in other African countries, Ghana, Senegal, as well as outside the continent. You have offices here in the UK as well as America. I'm curious to know, you know, how many people are you employing in these offices?
Across the, let's say, if you look at Gambia, for example, we have over 30 staff in our administrative side, and probably about over 100 in the development sides. Most of the projects that we do also are in partnership with developers who are also doing their own developments, but those employees are not under me. Then we have a team of, I think it's about 6 in Ghana, and maybe just under 10 in Senegal. In the UK and US, we have satellite offices, because I believe that we wanted to create an environment where people can easily walk into these offices and conduct their business. But as time went along, we realized that the distance was too far, and a lot of things was being conducted over the phone and over the internet. So, but it's been a great journey, you know, setting up all these businesses, offices, and getting closer to our target audience, which is the Gambians living abroad, the tourists that are looking to invest into Gambia, and even foreigners that are looking to invest into our country.
So let's talk more about your industry now. I know you've just touched on it now. I'm super interested in hearing, you know, how you view the current state of entrepreneurship in the Gambia. There is so much happening. When we look at just the property industry, it is booming, it's lucrative, there's more property developers. How would you assess the current state of property development in the Gambia? What's the environment like?
The environment, for us, it's pretty active, despite the situation that we find ourselves in. I believe that during crisis, people tend to prioritize things that are of essence rather than things that are not. So despite the situation, our affordable housings are still selling. The apartments that we have are still selling as well. And before, we thought that it was going to have a devastating asset. I mean, if don't get me wrong, we're still affected by this coronavirus one way or the other, because lack of movement and a lot of uncertainty. But despite all that, we're still selling, you know, quite a good number of properties, which excites me. Now, the industry as a whole, I think it's doing very well, but a lot of support is also needed from the government in terms of regulation. Anybody can wake up today and call themselves real estate developer or real estate agency, and it's causing a lot of issues. I think the government needs to step in and create some sort of framework so that people can play the same rules and follow the same regulations as everybody else. And in that way, it will only become, you know, bigger and better.
Now you know, you said anyone can wake up and call themselves real estate agents. So there's a lot of estate agent companies. We've established that. But just to understand better, are these Gambian owned businesses? Are they African owned? Because I understand there's also a lot of foreign competition on the ground from the Chinese and Indian, for example. Who are the leaders on the ground? Are they Gambian companies or?
The biggest players in the country are obviously, you cannot mention real estate without mentioning TAF, who has been the pioneers, and also open it up for people like me to come and play our trades. But we also have some foreign players, like, for example, our partners are Indians, but we've been working with them for the last 13, 14 years, and they've done amazing things. There are other non-Gambian companies also doing a lot of good things in the industry. But lately, I think due to the success of Global Properties and how it's basically simplified and made it easy and affordable to get into the real estate industry, we've also seen an emergence of a lot of Gambians, following the footsteps and doing trades in this business. Now, I am not against foreign investment in our country, because I believe that it can only help us get better and bigger in these sectors. But I am for regulation, to regulate so that everybody plays on a level playing field and make sure that everybody obey the rules and regulations of what is best for the country.
There's been a lot of questions coming in around regulation, so we'll get into that later on. So competition is tough on the ground. How does Global Properties stand out amongst many of the other companies? Because you have been very successful, Saul. I get the sense that you're downplaying the success.
Yes, my company has been very successful because we focus a lot on innovation. When I came into the business, I didn't play by what everybody else was doing. I broke barriers. I introduced schemes which would make it affordable. For example, before Global Properties, people thought that in order to own a property, you need to either go abroad or you need to do something illegal to raise that kind of money to be able to afford it. I said no. First of all, I said it is wrong for people to start investing in properties when they're at the age of 45 or 50. It is wrong for people to wait until they have millions before they can invest into property. So I said, ideally, I want people to start earning properties at the age of 20 or 25. Imagine having secured a good job and then you can spare between $3,000 or $5,000 a month. You can now use this to invest into your own property. 2-3 years down the line, you probably have your land and your title deed, which you can now take to the bank and say, hey, you know what? I have my title deed here. Can you help me build my house? So you do that another 5 years, pay off the loan. Then within the age of 30 or before 30, you're now a homeowner. You can now take this property and put it back into the bank again, release some funds, and use this to open your own business and do other things that you find, important. So these were the key things that I focused on to make sure that we brought the age at which people own properties. We also made it affordable, that you can start investing with as little as $5,000 or $100, or in the UK case, maybe £80 or so. And it was innovative. It was never thought of before. Nobody was doing it in the Gambia before. And this spiraled our popularity because we focused on what was needed within the Gambia. Yeah.
Now, Saul, you're claiming to provide affordable housing. You're saying $5,000. It may well be affordable for you and I, but maybe not for a lot of people. I think the reality is most Gambians cannot afford to buy their own homes. People are forced, to prioritize between being a homeowner and the basics like health, education, for example, and from my experience, it seems land is sold to the highest bidders. So I guess my question really is, how affordable is your affordable housing to Gambians that live and work in Gambia?
Now, I think when it comes to this, a lot of people mistakenly affordable housing compared to social housing. Most developers are looking to maximize their profits and make a living out of it. In order to get sort of social housing, which is below affordable housing, the government needs to get involved by, one, providing the land to the developer, number two, giving them incentives in terms of duty waivers and all these things,
Mm-hmm.
And in return, the government will demand from the developer
Mm-hmm.
to pass on these savings to the clients.
Mm-hmm.
When I started my business, which was 15 years ago up to now,
Mm-hmm.
nor the Jami administration, nor the Barrow administration, none of them has given me a single 1 meter by 1 meter land for free.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we've developed in this country or built on is something that we've bought with
Mm-hmm.
our own money.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, it's very difficult for us to do massive savings
Mm-hmm.
where we can then pass on to these customers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, according to the World Bank, the affordable housing is
Mm-hmm.
categorized under $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
When I started my affordable housing scheme a year ago, we were
Mm-hmm.
selling our houses then for, I think, $28,000.
Mm-hmm.
So which
below.
is classified exactly below, which is classified, below the affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Left to me alone, I want to bring that even lower,
Mm-hmm.
so that a lot of people will be able to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
But the key thing that I've mentioned here is that to make it affordable,
Mm-hmm.
the developer alone can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they will close their businesses and just sit
Mm-hmm.
home.
But
Government
if
needs to.
yeah.
Go ahead.
But if the demand is there from local people, and also, I'm aware that you were made ambassador of development, something along those lines a few years ago. So you're clearly connected to the government. Why can't you bring the two together? If the demand is there, then surely you can make it happen.
We've made attempts by setting up a real estate association,
Mm-hmm.
which would lobby for these things on our behalf. And they've had several meetings with government bodies to
Mm-hmm.
try to get these things on board.
Mm-hmm.
It is still ongoing. Nothing has been done yet. Nothing has been achieved yet, but they haven't given up. They're still trying to achieve this contribution or this support that we expect from the government.
Mm-hmm.
Notwithstanding, what I've done from my end is, for example,
Mm-hmm.
we have been providing properties to the Gambia Police Force at an extremely affordable level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, my company signed up a contract with the Gambia Police Force to provide them with 1,500 properties. Project
Mm-hmm.
is still going on. We've delivered some,
Mm-hmm.
and we still have some more to deliver. But we were giving them these properties at below $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So a piece of land for below $1,000 is very commendable. Looking at the fact that this is not something that was sponsored by the government or given to us by free. But we felt that it was a good contribution towards our national development by ensuring the police force and the staff have something that they can call a property, and then hopefully we'll help them to develop it as we go along. So we're not just sitting there and waiting for government to act. We're also doing our bit on the side just to make sure that we create something.
Yeah, but I think what is key to me is you said in the beginning that companies like Global Properties and people like yourself, you have set the path for a lot more developers to come in the game. And also, I think you've also mentioned that you need that support from government to make it happen. And as a young person, as a relatively young person, Saul, I think a lot of young people look up to you clearly, and they're saying they cannot afford to buy homes. Even when they do get married, they're staying at home with their parents and extended families, because even rent is totally unaffordable, So I think the onus is on you to support young people that are wanting to get onto that property ladder, because I am sure you understand how important that is.
It is extremely important, Haddy, and this is one of the reasons why we are here. But we also need to remember that buying a home is something that you do maybe once in your lifetime, twice or three times. That is if you're extremely lucky. So it's not something that you should take lightly, and it's not something that you should should happen straight away. You need to plan for these things. You need to invest and make sure that you walk towards the goal of owning a property. In the UK or everywhere else, it will take an individual to own it will take an individual about 20 to 25 years to own a property. So you cannot wake up one day here and expect that things are just going to be so affordable that you can move into it right away. Now, my aim is to keep breaking that barrier and making it more affordable to everybody and to people that thought that they could never afford a house. And we'll continue to work on that. But it's going to be very difficult for us to do it alone. We would need the government to come on board and support our cause and make sure that we achieve our goals in terms of housing as many Gambians as possible.
Well, what about other governments across Africa? You know, like I said, you're active in Ghana and Senegal as well. Are they providing or doing enough in terms of affordable housing for their growing populations?
In one of our developments that we're doing with our partners in Senegal, that's exactly what happened. You know, the Senegalese government gave them a massive piece of land and also incentivized them in terms of tax breaks, cutting out some of the duties that they were paying. But in return, they demanded that a certain percentage of the property is sold at a certain price so that people below the affordable ladder would be able to afford those properties as well. So there are many schemes that can be done. And I think if government sits and listens to us developers, we can certainly work together and create that atmosphere. You know, we're not saying that we want everything in our pocket, but make it affordable for us so that we can pass on these savings to the clients and make sure that as many Gambians as possible can own their homes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Saul. So one of the criticisms that private developers receive is that you're buying acres of land, putting it on the market when you want. There are no plans to build schools, hospital, communal parks. Do you understand those concerns, or is it just the case that you're a businessman and that should be up to the government to legislate?
No, I must commend the Department of the Physical Planning Department because legally you cannot buy an acre of land, build on it without creating certain facilities. Now, whenever you do your layout and take it for approval, they ensure that obviously there's schools within the area, there are mosques, you know, the communal parks and things like that. So you cannot get a development done without getting these things in place legally. You know, so in all our developments across the Gambia, we have parks, playing ground for the kids, we have schools, we have space locations created for mosques and churches, you know, and even for things like gym, if some people are interested in developing those. So by law, we cannot build or develop estates without creating these facilities in place. So they're always
you're saying then that the estates you've developed, they have all these things. They have gyms and
they have spaces allocated for it. Now, if somebody is interested, it comes to me and say, we want to develop one of your schools. All you need to do is come with a plan, a business plan of your school, how it's going to be like, and what you have in mind.
Okay,
and
so
it will be, so it will be for us to say, okay, you know what, let's now go to government and say, this land that we've allocated for school, we'll lobby on your behalf for you to develop the school that you want to be. Now, again, it's not left to us because all the spaces that we take out has to be given back to the government and for them to allocate to who they feel has the right, you know, schools and things to build, really. Yeah, but it is by law that we have to create it and make the space available for anybody who's interested in developing it.
Okay, that's really, that's good to know. Saul, again, one of the things that I've alluded to a little bit is that you were awarded Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2009, and in 2017, you were appointed as Ambassador at Large for Development in the Gambia. So if anyone knows what young people are feeling on the ground, it's you. So tell us, in your own words, the sentiments on the ground in terms of opportunities or lack thereof, and how you're fulfilling that role as Ambassador for Development.
Yes, the the award I received in 2010 was really eye-opening and very motivational for me, because for a body that that advises businesses in the Gambia to recognize your work and what you've done and award you is just amazing. So it gave me the confidence I needed then to keep pushing forward, and I haven't stopped since then. Being appointed as an ambassador at large for development was also another achievement. There's one that you missed award. Actually, was awarded by Jame for a national order as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are opportunities everywhere, Haddy, and I think it's important for young people to realize when there's a change and then try to adapt to these changes, because you will not sit and everything be served to you on a silver platter.
Absolutely.
It won't happen here. It won't happen in Mars or anywhere else. So it's important that we, the young people, grasp every opportunity there is to do something better for ourselves and for our country. What I've realized is that a lot of people want good things, but they don't want to work for it. And that is an impossible equation. For whatever you want in life, you really have to focus, invest in it by educating yourself, developing yourself, and working towards those goals. Without it, nothing is going to happen.
Absolutely.
Now, we've seen tremendous changes in the Gambian climate lately. The business environment has gotten somewhat better because people can now operate freely without fear. And there's been a lot of businesses being set up. I admire the likes of, Fat Delivery, Fanta Cupcakes, Kabagal, so many innovations has been coming. And these are just few, that are making waves. But then there are many others that are doing really, really well. And these are the people that are taking opportunities. And I don't understand why it's stopping others from it. Because if you just sit for government to do something, that's never going to happen. But by you doing something and creating that attention that you need, then you can now open doors to do other things, for the country.
So thank you, Saul. I want us to focus now on being more inclusive and involving the marginalized in Africa, who tend to be, unfortunately, the young people and women, especially those living in rural areas. So to set the scene a little bit better, I'm going to throw some numbers at you. So 22% of Africa's working age population are starting businesses. You've alluded to that. You've said, there are a lot of new businesses and innovations starting up on the ground. 27% of the female adult population is engaged in early stage businesses. So we have, and I said this in the introduction, we have the highest entrepreneurship rate in the world. But while the activity is high, a lot of people are starting businesses. The contribution to the economy is not matching that. It's not reflecting. So what is your take on that? Why do you think that is?
I believe that most of these businesses fail because people tend to give up very early, and most of the businesses don't get to the stage that they should because they lack the simple things like good internet, to be able to put their merchandise out there, to be able to put the things that they offer and get the reach that they need. Most of these fail simply because they don't have the mentorship or the leadership training that they so deserve. And for me, if you look at my story, you'll see that I've been supporting businesses from the day when I started business, because I believe in giving out and also sharing my story so that other people can benefit from it. My love for music powered me towards doing a lot in the music industry then, because I believe that the Gambian music was good enough to be taken internationally, and in that way sell our country in a better way. But then during that time I also was doing a lot of mentoring one-to-one, and then we started with businesses and the likes. Then I said to myself, hey, you know what, maybe I should do something more than what I was doing, and that led me to do this public speaking so that I can reach out a wider area and be able to inspire many more people there. Now, the reason why those are marginalized, I think, is access to resources, really. Access to resources, access to adequate training and mentorship, because everybody needs a mentor, one way or the other, that can teach you to learn from their failures and also to learn their success stories to keep you going. Because it's not a sale, it's not something that's going to be very straightforward to follow. You know, business life, it's full of roller coasters. You know, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. So you need somebody to tap your shoulder and say, hey, you know what, keep going, keep pushing. Things are going to get better. Because I believe that the more we reach out to these people and give them encouragement, the support and the resources they need, the education, then it would be better for them and for the country.
So let's talk education a little bit. You just said education. For me, it seems like, from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's in order for a business to scale, you need the right people, right? And those people also need the right training. And in Africa, one of the challenges that remains is our education system. From an employer's point of view, Saul, how would you assess the readiness of young people post graduation or post high school going into the job market? Are they ready?
No, Haddy. The majority are not ready at all. Our education system isn't the best at the moment. Judging from the quality of applications that we receive, how much mistakes they put in these applications, and the terrible writing of them just shows you that, you know, it's scary. It's really scary. But we sometimes try not to concentrate too much on that by just giving them an opportunity to meet with them, because sometimes you look at their passion and their drive. You know, once somebody has that, then the rest is trainable. You know, it's learnable. But just judging by academic merits, the quality of our education has gone down very bad compared to some years ago. But recently, obviously, with the lights of COVID now coming, is going to affect it even more. So government need to re-strategize really and focus on education, because if we don't educate the youth and educate the nation, we're going to fall further behind in terms of development. For sure.
I think it's really interesting what you said, because I also believe that in order to be an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have to be an academic, you know? So if entrepreneurship is the way forward for Africa, I think, you know, governments should really look into kind of incorporating entrepreneurship and business into African education. But Saul, I also want to get your perspective on the unemployment issue in the Gambia, especially. Why do you think it has been so difficult to get a grip on this?
I think initially the government had plans to create a lot of skill centers and focus a lot on the youth and their development. It started great. I think there was a funding that came in just after the elections, and that was supposed to change, you know, everything. But we're yet to see that impact. I think the other agencies are doing extremely well, the likes of YEPS, trying to create the Gambian brand or everything Gambian. And they've been supporting youth a lot. But the country will not develop if we leave the youth behind, because they're the future, and they're the present, and they're also the future at the moment. If you look at a country where 60% of the population are aged around 30, you would be doing a massive mistake not investing in them or trying to get them going. And that's where we find ourselves now. A lot of them have the drive, a lot of them have the need to do something. But then the support and the guidance is really what is lacking. A day doesn't pass when I don't receive an email or a message through social media, people asking for advice, asking for ways to get started and what to do. And this is also another reason why I started this YouTube channel. Just encouraging the youth and letting them know that it's not easy, and people shouldn't give up on their dreams and should keep working very, very hard. But the government definitely need to play their role by creating a lot of training, maybe skill-based training, education, and just advising the youth on how to go about setting up and building their life from there.
What about access to capital and finance? Because I know this is one of the other barriers that young people or people in general face when getting into business.
Access to finance shouldn't be a hindrance to setting up a business. As I've mentioned in many of my interviews, is that I started my business with $150,000, which is $3,000. You think about it now, and only $1,500 was my own money. The other $1,500 was a friend's money, who later decided to quit the business. So there are a lot of businesses that you can start with very little or no money at all. And I've used this in one of my talks. You can start with a service-oriented business, which doesn't require too much capital to start with. So sometimes we expect too much from the government, and the government are having their own issues as well. But you can look at ways and means where you can start with little or no money at all.
Thank you, Saul. I think it is evident from your YouTube channel that you're at a point in your life where you have a wealth of experience under your belt and you want to share it with your community. What are the key messages that you're trying to get across to the youth?
The key thing is just to stop procrastinating. A lot of the time we have brilliant ideas, we have so many things that we want to do, but somewhere, somehow, we just tossed it away to someday island, starting, someday I'm going to do this, someday I'm going to do that, someday I'm going to do that. But then why someday? Why not start now? So that's why the message is always clear and loud, that to stop procrastinating, take action now for a brighter future. And I think that is really the main thing, because once you start going, nobody will stop you.
That feels it resonates very well with me. It feels like a personal attack. But so we're going to move on now to the final part of the show, where you answer questions from the audience. Most of the questions we had coming in were around what advice you would give to young entrepreneurs just starting out, which I would say you have covered. We also had a lot of questions around costs and prices. So question 1 says, what is the explanation for price hikes in properties and variations of prices for the same product in the same market?
Well, that's different, and I would like to know which one they're talking about, because I know for a very fact that price hikes would depend on obviously the location, the type of property that you're buying, but pretty much everything has to do with location, because you cannot expect the same price of property in Senegambia to be sold at the same price in, for example, Sanyang. So location plays a role. The size of the property also matters in order to determine whether you're getting a fair value for your money.
Okay. Second question from Tima Bella, who's sending brilliant questions, by the way. Thank you, Tima. Unfortunately, we cannot ask all of them, so I picked this one out. She says, ask Saul, who is his mentor in this area of business?
When I started real estate, I really didn't have a mentor then. I was relying pretty much on the drive and the passion that I had to house as many Gambians as possible and to break barriers. But then along the way, I was reading a lot of books, just learning from success stories, people that have done well, how they did it, and so on. Believe it or not, I just recently took up somebody to mentor me. I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, but it's Rene Carroll. We started this mentorship about 3 months ago. So we have like monthly sessions, and then we'll just do Zoom. I'll contact him on a video, then we'll talk about a few things. But that was mainly on the public speaking sector and just in general as well. But no, I haven't had a mentor for real estate.
And how useful has this mentorship been?
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. You know, as much as you learn from mentoring people, you also learn from your mentors. You know, people that have done it, they've been there, you know, and they can see the things that you don't see, and they can teach you and open doors for you. And that's what I'm hoping to gain from the mentorship that I'm having with Rennie. So yeah, grab the opportunity as soon as you can, you know, because yes, they've done it already. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so like I said, many questions on price regulations. Third question from my dear friend Sajo Barrow. He says, why is it standard procedure in the Gambia for estate agents to charge clients legal fees of up to $15,000? I know Sajo demands an answer for this.
Now, remember, the legal fee is something that we pay to a lawyer who is outside of your establishment. And these lawyers, when you have them on a retainer, they will either give you a fixed fee to charge for all your documentation, or they will just charge you based on what they do for you. Now, you're not obliged to stay with the lawyer of the developer or the people that you're buying from. If you were able to contact another lawyer and they can do it cheaper for you, there's nothing stopping you from taking your documents to that lawyer and get them to do the job for you. But yeah, I don't know why that is, but yeah, 15,000 sounds something that a retainer would charge for a conveyance over the time. Yes. Okay,
so you're able to get your own lawyers if you can have it for cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
Just seen a question come in now from C Boy Kiang. He says, my question to Saul is, what extent of risk can one take in investing in Gambia, especially in the field of construction and civil engineering industry in Gambia?
You know, without risk, you're likely not making a lot of leeway. I take a lot of risk, but these are mostly calculated risk as well. So, as the French said, you know, trust doesn't exclude control. Make sure whatever you do, you have enough backing, enough control in terms of who you're dealing with, what you're getting yourself into. But risk is part of the game, and you should embrace it and take it as much as you can. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Saul. Now, final question, and this is from me. And I just feel like I just get the sense that there are some lessons that have carried you through this journey. What are these lessons, Saul, and how did you learn them?
My drive was to always develop myself as a person. And that is with continuous learning. I try to learn as much as possible every day, and not from just myself and people that are doing well, but also look at failures. Even our cleaner in the office has something to teach you, the drivers, you know, from everywhere. So I listen to as many people as possible and keep learning as the journey goes on. But I am very passionate about helping people, developing people. But it starts from me, because if I don't develop myself and help myself, it's very difficult for me to do it for other people as well. I'm very success driven. I don't take no for an answer very lightly, you know, so I can be very stubborn as well when it comes to the things that I want and how I want them done. So I guess it's a trade of an entrepreneur, again, not to give up, you know, no matter how hard it is, to keep pushing and breaking barriers and staying focused, keeping your eye on the game, you know, all the time. So yeah, it's just wanting more and more and more and more, because success attracts. Once you're successful in one thing, you just want to emulate it and keep becoming successful over and over again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Saul. I'm so glad that you were able to join us and share your story. You have an incredible story. I think one that teaches us that we are creators, we are leaders, and, you know, the African youth are really reshaping the continent. And for people asking about your YouTube channel, I know you're on YouTube as Saul Frazer.
Yes.
So thank you very much for your time. Thank you to everybody watching as well, and have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Haddy. You too.
Thank you. Thank you. Every Saturday at 4 p.m. Do make sure you join us. There will be lots of fun, informative, and impactful conversation. Hi everyone, my name is Haddy and I'm a journalist and communications specialist. I believe that as Africans, we should be in charge of every narrative coming out of Africa. We have a lot of positive stories to tell and share with the world, and I'm determined to use my platform to make that a reality. This is why I've teamed up with the FATA Network to bring you a brand new show, Stories from the Continent, every Saturday at 4 p.m. Do make sure you join us. There will be lots of fun, informative, and impactful conversations.